Hello and welcome back to the Healthy Hustlers podcast. I'm your host, Madelyn, and I am so excited to be here today. I have one of my beautiful friends, my very magnetic friend, but also she is Australia's leading trauma therapist. I'm very excited to welcome Jessica Alla to the show. We have been connected for maybe about 12 months now, and Jess has been a really pivotal part of my growth, in particular this year. So I wanted to bring her into the show because she is the most magnetic woman, but she's also doing so much in the trauma space. And I know trauma is often a word that, we can hear, we can wonder if we have it. Some of us are unaware of what the traumas can look like. Or maybe you were like me and thought that you shouldn't have any form of trauma because you had a really good upbringing. Jess does have, I guess, quite an intense story and upbringing, if I'm very honest. You can follow her on Instagram at Jessica Alla, but Jess did experience a lot of sexual abuse growing up, both from her father and grandfather. And when I came across Jess's page initially on Instagram, I remember reading her content and I was like, whoa, like how is that even humanly possible to grow up in that? Because all I could see is this magnetic, thriving, happy, vibrant woman through my screen. And when I got connected with her, I realized that that is absolutely her reality right now. She's thriving. She's in the most beautiful relationship. Her business is booming, but she did have a lot of trauma that she needed to work through to get to this point in time. So today's episode is going to be a little bit different. Jess has been sharing a lot on a lot of the leading podcasts in Australia, in particular an episode with Georgie Stevenson on Rise and Conquer, which I know you probably listened to that podcast too. So if you want to hear a lot more on that side of things with Jess, definitely check out Georgie's episode with Jess. It was amazing. I was lucky enough to sit in on that interview. But today we're going to take a little bit of a different spin. And so please welcome Jess to the Healthy Hustlers podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited.
For a different chat too. I feel like we're just going to go into such a flow.
We are. And I think a big thing that came up through our friendship as well is like your spiritual side and how, spiritual you are, how connected you are to your inner world and the universe. And I feel like this is going to be a really cool chat for you to kind of really bring that side of you into that as well. First things first, I want to dive straight in. What is trauma?
It's such a difficult question because I feel like, as you said, people think that trauma is something really big that happened, when in actual fact, to me, trauma is just an open memory. And it's where something's happened in the past, and the recipe for trauma, if you will, is that we had an overwhelming amount of emotions that we didn't know how to process, but we were also really confused. So the reason that the memory would stay open and become traumatic is because our brain thinks, well, I don't really understand what's happening here and it didn't feel good. So I'm going to keep this memory open so I can protect myself from this happening in the future. Our trauma is just essentially any memory that's open, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something like what I've been through, these intense experiences of abuse. It can also just be someone saying something mean to you in the schoolyard and you don't even know what it means that they've said, but you know that it's unkind. And you don't know how to understand it. You feel really confused. You feel a bit rejected, a bit emotional. And so in order for you to not kind of have to feel those feelings again, your brain's like, all right, cool, I'm going to keep this memory open so that we can protect ourselves in future. That's essentially what a trauma is. It's an open memory. A lot of people don't realize that every trigger that you have, every single trigger goes back to one of those open memories. So I always say to people, it doesn't really matter what it is that happened. I mean, sometimes it does matter what when you get to that really extreme side of things, but it doesn't really matter what was happening. It more so matters that you're actually going back into and processing it so that your brain can know that that was then and this is now. Because what happens is, even with those smaller traumas, when you're triggered, say in a relationship, maybe you've been cheated on in the past and you're in a current relationship and something happens and you get triggered, your brain is going to respond as if you're back in that past situation unless you've healed it. So I often find a lot of women on edge in relationships where they don't need to be because they've got these open memories from the past telling them you got to be careful, you got to be careful. There is so much validity in actually healing all of those, we'll call them smaller traumas, smaller T traumas. They actually stack up and they create a lot of the problems that we experience in everyday life. It's funny because we were talking about this sort of off camera, but so many women that book sessions with me say, oh, I feel really bad bringing this to you because you've been through so much. And I'm like, oh, please bring me. Any suffering is suffering. I don't want any woman to experience any negative thoughts or have any effect of something that's happened in the past on their present. It's all valid.
And I love that you actually touched on that, because I remember when I first came across your profile, I was like, well, if she can heal herself from what she's been through, she can definitely help me step into my full potential, because I have no excuse why I shouldn't be able to. So I actually took it as a really kind of like empowering thing. That I was like, this is the girl that can move things, that can do things. And, you know, that has absolutely happened. So I guess to give a little bit of context, I know we're not going to dive into it super deep, but you obviously experienced some like super traumatic things growing up, and you stayed in that kind of cycle until I think it was around 30. Am I correct?
Yep, 30. Yep. As you mentioned, like I was sexually abused by my father, raped by my grandfather. I was tortured. I was constantly criticized by my father. I was bullied at school. I was physically abused. I was hit so hard I'm deaf in my left ear permanently. Every type of abuse you can imagine, I went through it, and that was all the time, like my entire childhood. And so I guess the thing that people don't realize is that I didn't really know any different.
Yes.
But I did learn young in my life that you had to just survive. And probably the hardest thing for me to get out of was this like just surviving, no thriving. You know, there was a period of just like, I just don't want to have a panic attack today. That'd be good. There's these layers to healing.
Yes.
But yeah, I think what's attracted women like you into my world, which is really cool and I love it, is that it's kind of like that wasn't enough. Yeah, okay, you can move past survival, you can heal all the traumas, but then what? Do you just want to live a mediocre life? And I was like, no, I want like magic. I want magic in spite of the trauma. Like I want the biggest business and the best, safest love and the most passion. And I want everything to feel like magic. You know, a lot of people stop there. And the way I think of it is like, maybe you haven't had the intense abuse, but you might just still be living a mediocre existence. You might just still feel like nothing really feels that good. You've still got so much room to grow.
Yes. And so when you say triggers, and especially when you're in survival mode and then things would have been triggering you, what was that first awareness for you of like, okay, this trigger is actually a sign of what I ultimately need to change or heal?
Yeah. I think every trigger is a sign that we need to heal. I don't know when was like the defining moment. I spent the last 15 years researching, you know, what trauma is, what triggers are, how they work. For me, a really pivotal moment was understanding what implicit memory is. Linking that implicit memory is where trauma is stored. So for those of you who don't know, an explicit memory is remembering the day that you learned how to ride a bike. You're like, it was sunny and I had this cute little pink bike, and like you can remember the day and it's like a visual memory. Implicit memory is the memory that allows you to jump on that bike today and pedal and not be like, turn the pedal, steer that, like you just do it. Trauma is implicit. So this is where like those triggers, once I learned this, it was like, oh, hold on a minute. So even though I'm trying to like consciously, okay, what's the belief here? What's the trauma? What did I decide about myself? What's the visual memory? There's this whole other world where my body's remembering these traumas. I would smell a certain smell or hear a certain phrase, or something would remind me of something in the past, and my body would go into a complete panic trying to protect itself from something that I was completely unaware of. And so I think when it comes to triggers, I realize that women are being triggered all day, every day, from things that their body is remembering that their mind might not even remember yet. And there is always like a link back to something, and you know, we do slowly uncover it, but there is also a lot of healing that can be done in just understanding that the body's remembering something that the mind maybe has forgotten.
Yes, I love that. And that's a big part of your work now, because so Jess has Aaruka certification where she actually trains women to ultimately be able to shift these beliefs and embody the newer version of them. So it is a certification that you can actually do. So if you're interested in the subconscious reprogramming and really leveling up your life, then maybe that's something you could look into. I know it's definitely calling me.
Yes.
But, you know, they're the modalities. It's the modalities that Jess ultimately uses to help you heal. So one of the things that I personally worked through with Jess, and talking of triggers, was I had a lot of stories. I grew up loving acting, dancing, performing. I have a very core memory of when I was about maybe 11, and I was doing a singing concert, and my mum made me this like fluffy black skirt that she had made, and I had these like boots on and a cowgirl hat and a leather pink top, and I was like on this stage like shaking my hips and just absolutely loving life. But what came from that was in a tiny small town in like the country hall, and what came after that was obviously a lot of stories around like, oh wow, she's a real performer, or a lot around showing up in my full expression. And so my mind started to tell me that it wasn't safe to do that, to show up in my full expression, because it came with criticism, it came with comments of like being a show off, being too much, being a drama queen, loving the attention. And so I didn't realize this. I just remember that as a memory. Like I remember being on that stage, but I didn't realize what the aftermath of that actually was. So in that process, my mind has ultimately continued to build evidence as to why I'm not fully safe to show up in that full expression of myself. And the trigger for me was when I shared something about the Healthy Hustlers hitting some milestone on Instagram, and I received what was meant to be a very beautiful message from someone I went to school with, but it triggered the absolute fuck out of me. And the message was like, I'm so proud of you, Mads. All I remember is you telling me in primary school that you want to be a star one day. And my entire body was just like dying inside. She thinks I want to be a star. I don't think I'm a star. Like, I don't think I'm this. I don't think I'm famous. Like all of these stories and this unraveling. And for like weeks on end, I could not stop thinking about this message. And I really noticed I stopped showing up online. I started really like dulling myself of like, oh yeah, here's the success that's in my business, but like, look at my home. It's a complete mess, and look at all the washing. And, you know, I might be able to hold one thing, but I can't hold the others. And it was this real kind of undoing of what I had created. That was a big memory that came up.
And that's like, that's such a perfect example, because if that didn't have links back to the past, you would have, there's no way you would have reacted so dramatically to that situation.
No, it would have been like, thanks, babe.
Yeah.
Like,
but you responded like your 10-year, however old it was. You responded like your younger self, because that's what happens. You get pulled back into that mental state and that feeling and that like that same chaoticness. Like you get pulled back there. Yes. And I think that's such a perfect example of how someone might think that something that's happening in the present or something that's happened in the present is the trigger and the catalyst. Or maybe that, you know, you have a lot of self-awareness, and I'm sure people that are listening hopefully do too. Someone else would have not even realized that that had triggered them. They would have just therefore like gone and done those actions of like pulling content down from online and being embarrassed about what they're posting and showing the behind the scenes like, oh, I'm not a star. Look, I'm not. They wouldn't even be consciously aware that they're doing that. And we do that in so many ways with so many triggers. Yes. And I think it's good that you were able to pinpoint it. And I remember when you brought it to me and I was like, that's clearly a trigger, because you've been thinking about it so often. It doesn't sound like a big trauma, but it stayed with you.
It stayed with me, and ultimately it was holding me back from that full self-expression and showing up from a like place of fear of judgment versus a place of like overflow, magnetism. I'm embodied in who I am. So I feel like everything from that moment was coming from that lack, nervousness, fear of judgment versus this is me and I actually don't care what you think.
Yes. And like I am a star and I've always wanted to be a star and I will be a star, and like actually owning it, because there's also this piece of like, and I've had this too, of like owning certain titles or things like that where it's just like, ooh, like there's this feeling of like people could not take me down, but kind of. It's like, oh, people could criticize me or attack me or pick that apart if I get too big and too shiny and too, you know, confident and outspoken, and I embrace that. Other people will be triggered, but that's where you get to be the mirror, because a lot of the time other people are the mirror for us and we get triggered by them. And if we have self-awareness, we can go, oh, why was I triggered? That's because I want that, or I want to be like that. But at some point, I feel like there's this shift where you do enough self-work that you actually start to become the mirror for other people, and you say things and you be confident and loud and outspoken and you fully show up as yourself. And then the people that do come for you, if you will, are the people who are triggered by you and you're mirroring to them their potential. So I've got to the point now where I just see that as like, I'm grateful to be the mirror for them. And I actually genuinely hope and pray that they take it and use it and go, actually, I want what she has. Actually, I'm going to do that too.
And I feel like that's actually been a big shift for me now, understanding this work in a lot more detail. And obviously have working with you and having the effect of it now, I'm like, oh, I actually don't care what people think. Not also even in a like, of course I care about people, but I mean the people that are going to judge me, they're not my people anyway. They're not there for the right reasons. And I've also been able to have the reflection now of, if I'm judging something in someone else, it's like, what's that saying about me? Where am I not allowing myself to fully step into that? So if it's someone talking about, say, a lot of money or the things they've achieved, I'm like,
Money box.
That's really triggering me. That is a sign that it's something that I'm not allowing myself to fully have and to own.
100%.
Yeah. I know you work with women on such a massive kind of scale, but what are some of the more common things that you see? Especially this podcast is really about thriving in all aspects of your life. And I'm a big believer, and I know you are too, that like the mind, body, spirit connection around all of that. So what are kind of some of the things that you see coming up?
I think like outside of the more complex trauma, because obviously,
Yes.
like you said, a lot of my work is like PTSD, sexual trauma, complex trauma, like very intense things. But the truth is, even those women, once you work through those really big traumas and those flashbacks, they actually have the same problems as everybody else, which is confidence, self-worth, which is relationships, number one. All forms of relationships, whether it's friendships, the dynamic with your parents, it's just humans, all of our problems relate back to other humans. And it's the same, like even with self-worth, it's like a lot of the time it's because we're caring so much about what other people think. And we're often, as women, one of the biggest things that I've found as a pattern lately as well is women only seeing themselves through other people's eyes or when they're observed. So women not kind of like seeing themselves as an individual, but as in context to somebody else. Like, I'm not beautiful unless my husband tells me that I'm beautiful, or I'm not successful unless my friends tell me I'm so successful, or not actually feeling these things themselves, but always looking for someone else to mirror everything back to them.
That like external validation.
External validation, yeah. And it robs them of actually what they want to do because they end up doing what everybody else wants them to do.
Oh my goodness. I love that you just mentioned that, because it was only like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was trying to find a photo for something and I found all of these photos of me like mid-20s, like maybe 25. And I still remember a lot of the thoughts that I had around myself at that. I've always been quite a confident person. I've always would have thought that I had quite a positive self-talk. But I was looking back at these photos and I literally just started crying and I thought, wow, like you're so beautiful. I'm getting emotional saying that. You're so vibrant. Why didn't you see yourself as that?
Yeah.
Like I never, ever at that age in my early 20s saw myself in that light, and
such a waste of time and life,
such a waste of time and energy and like purpose and everything. And I'm getting emotional now. I got so sad looking back and thinking, imagine what I could have achieved if I had have seen myself through that lens. I'm sure there's people seeing me through that lens of that I was confident and maybe beautiful, vibrant, but I wasn't seeing myself through that lens at all. I was waiting for everyone around me to tell me that, for my partner to give me the validation that I was that. And that just feels like so robbed.
I know. And I think that we do that. We're designed like that because for survival, we need our parents' love. So we're looking to them. Do you love me? Is this okay? Is this not okay? Do you still love me? Do you still love me? And then it kind of like ripples out from that first attachment that you have with your parents into that like first boyfriend or girlfriend. We just continue that same pattern if we've never been taught how to self-validate. That's why whenever my kids do something good, I'm always like, are you proud of yourself first before I tell them I'm proud of them? Are you proud of yourself? How did it feel? Did it feel good? Are you excited? Like, and when they do something good, because it's like teaching them how to self-validate. Oh, you save years of spending time trying to get it from somebody else.
That's amazing. I feel like I'm constantly telling my daughter that she's so smart and I'm so proud of her because they're the things I wanted to be told.
Because,
but that's such a beautiful takeaway.
Because we then we're always searching for the praise from somebody else. Yeah.
Totally. What are some of the other kind of like tips you could get to really start to, I guess, anchor into being the woman that does allow herself to see herself through the lens of being proud, being confident, being capable.
If you haven't had that upbringing.
If you haven't had it, or you're always searching for that validation externally.
Yeah, it comes like really at a deep core level from this. Like, it's not even that you want to be validated for how smart you are or how successful you are or how pretty you are or whatever. It's that you actually just want to know that you're loved and accepted. So it comes back to working with all of the memories that you have where you didn't feel loved and accepted, and, you know, correctly processing them and changing them, but also working at a subconscious level. Because at the end of the day, most problems that we struggle with as women come back to identity, in that we think that we have to be the person that we were raised to be for the rest of our lives. And we don't realize that our identity was actually formed because of what other people projected onto us. This is who you have to be. This is, you know, be quiet, be quiet. I was always told to be quiet. I was too loud. And I talked too much. I remember my stepdad, and it was like not even meant to be a bad thing, but he always used to say, you could talk underwater with a mouthful of concrete.
And look at us both now.
And look at us talking, literally.
We get paid to talk.
Right? But like, we shame ourselves for
100%.
because it's set in kind of like a negative light, because it's triggering. Like, I mean, I love my stepdad, love you, Donnie, but he's a quiet guy and he doesn't like loud noise and he doesn't like a lot of talking. It was his trigger, and that he couldn't deal with that he projected. Now, I can only see that now out the other side to be like, oh, that's kind of him stuff, still love him, but I'm loud and I do talk a lot and I fucking love it and I get paid for it now. And people listen to me speak for an hour straight on my solo episodes and they want more. So it's a gift, but it's also like, I had to do so much work in that memory. For instance, I went back into that memory and took my adult self, like me now, into that memory and met that inner child and kind of like took her hand and went over to him and was like, I know that you're just saying this as a throwaway comment, but she's actually going to take it really personally and stop speaking and stop thinking that she shouldn't speak up and that she can't be loud and that her voice doesn't matter and that she talks too much, and she's going to try and suppress this part of herself that's actually just who she is. So respectfully, I'm going to teach her something different. And then I'll tell her, like, be loud, be vibrant, be crazy, be excited. Who cares what people say? Like, share your opinions. And I tell her that and I teach her that. And then coming out of that 2 days later, I'm like, okay, here's what I want to say. Because when you change it at a subconscious level, and we can go more into this soon, but when you change it at a subconscious level, we think that our identity is fixed. We think like, this is who I am. This is who I've always been. But it's like, just because it's who you've always been doesn't mean that it's actually deeply who you are. It's just who you've been programmed to be. And most of our dissatisfaction in relationships, in life, in career, in everything is because we're being who we were told that we had to be and not who we actually want to be. And the way that I always, because people are like, how do I even know? Like, how do I separate it? And I'm like, it's desire. You have this little desire, this little pull.
The pull. Yeah, for sure. And the pulls get stronger and stronger and louder and louder and louder.
Especially
until you
the
fully
older you
step
get,
in
I
it.
think too.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
for sure. I love that you use that example, because I feel like a big part of my self-development, learning a lot of, I guess, words or terms can often just feel quite big and broad until we have those actual examples, those real life experiences given to you where you can actually see yourself in that, or be like, oh, I had a really similar experience. And exactly what you just shared about your stepdad, when I worked with Jess, one of the moments, which the process you just spoke to where you go back, that's actually what I did with Jess. And it's the most beautiful experience. Like, it's super emotional, but to be able to actually be taken back to your younger self and be able to give her the reassurance, the guidance, whatever it is that you want right now in that moment is so freaking special. And like, you have such a gift to just give to this world, honestly. Like, it's just amazing the space that you hold to do that. And I had a similar-ish experience, but with my dad, who's like the most amazing human. Like, he's so beautiful. But there was an experience in like university where I wanted to quit uni or leave uni to pursue my acting, and he was like, you can't be a quitter, Maddie, you can't be a quitter. But the tone it was set in and the way that he had obviously articulated it in that moment, for me, carried it as, I'm not doing enough, I'm going to be a quitter if I don't follow through. And it's just interesting how that actually plays out until it's ultimately healed.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I don't know about you, but I'm really thinking a lot lately into spirituality, energetics, quantum physics. And I had this like debate with my partner, but I was like, if time isn't linear, which is like such a mind-blowing concept in itself, but I was like, if time, that's like right deep, but if time isn't linear and like there's this, you know, where all realities exist in like the quantum field, I was talking to him about if I went into the correct brainwave and I went back into this moment and I said what I wanted to say and I said it out loud and I felt it and I felt the emotions and I visualized it and I saw it. And now when I think back to it, it feels that actually happened. Did it? Did I actually change the past?
Yes.
Because I think now I feel or experience is that I'm actually not the same person that went through my childhood at all.
No.
And even when I look at her and pictures of her, I see her as the way that I healed her. I don't see her as tortured. And I feels like I've actually taken this different life path. Like I can imagine this life that like I didn't actually have, but I could have, but it got me to the same point, which sounds so, that's like full parallel universe shit. But I just actually feel like I've been thinking lately, like when we go back, when we're doing it on an energetic level and we're, you know, we're incorporating energy work as well as being in the correct brainwave, activating our pineal glands, all the things. Are we actually time traveling? Like, is this what's happening? Because it feels like you are.
No, I can totally relate to that. And so how do you personally see the subconscious mind and the reprogramming? Obviously, your subconscious mind holds all of your beliefs, your stories, your truths, but your conscious mind is the one that's like, your desires, but your subconscious mind is running the show. That's so
95%.
Even though if you're desiring something, your subconscious mind and the beliefs that it holds will always override the conscious mind.
Yes.
How do you see the spiritual world and the energetics working in sync with the subconscious? And how do you kind of get that working in harmony for women? Sorry, I know that's a very broad.
No, I think scientifically they say that in order for a subconscious belief to be able to unfold into real life and into experience, it has to have like a medium through which it's carried, which is the quantum field. Our subconscious beliefs are kind of carried into our experience via our perception.
Okay.
And so the way that I think about it is you can't really just isolate working with the mind or the body or spirituality and energetics. They have to be intertwined. And the reason why people are just hitting road bump after road bump is because they're doing like, say, hypnotherapy, which is a great tool to access their subconscious mind, but they're actually not tapped in at an energetic level. And the field, the energetic field, quantum field, is what carries the belief into existence. So if you're not working with the field and you're just working with the subconscious, you're kind of only getting one piece of the puzzle. And same with the body. So like I could tell you I could work on and process the most traumatic memory visually in my mind, but I could do that completely cut off from my body and emotions. There's this element when it comes to healing, and what people don't realize is you've got to be in your body. You've got to feel the things that you didn't feel. You've got to regulate your nervous system. You've got to say the words you didn't get to say, because there's a human element of, yes, we're spiritual beings. We're trapped in this human body that is carrying emotions, stored emotions and stored feelings and memories and beliefs. We actually have to be in the body to experience and feel the feelings and get those out and to move the body. But at the same time, we have to be tapped into the subconscious in the correct brainwave so that we are tapped into that energy field to remove the energy as well. So when I'm working with clients, I'm actually doing energy work to shift. It's not enough for me to just go through the hypnotherapy script to tell you that that belief's gone. I actually want to witness it on a quantum level. Like I actually want to witness it leaving you. And that's where I'm tapping into energy and seeing that belief. Like I watch the beliefs leave my clients and I can see that they're gone. And I know when they're gone, and almost always when I see it go, the client will say to me, it's gone. So it's always like in this sync, and you watch it and you know it's gone. And there's an element there of the human where, you know, I make you say after each one, it's gone, because that's a signal to the universe, we'll call it, but the universe is the quantum field, and the quantum field you're a part of, which is connecting back to your brain. So it's like I'm just probably maybe sending people's brains wild here, but it's all connected and people are missing that connection.
Totally. And that's why I think I wanted to have that conversation, because I'm like, it's really about having it all working in harmony. And I think for so many years I isolated things. It was like I'd hone in on my spiritual practices and my spiritual beliefs, but I'm like, oh, hang on, my mind isn't fully catching up with that because I hadn't done the subconscious reprogramming. But then I was doing subconscious reprogramming or dabbling with that, but I wasn't then having the feelings actually going through my body to connect into with the new beliefs that I was calling in. So it was like it was just working against each other constantly, and then I was getting frustrated. Well, then now I'm like,
and
oh,
it's not
I
working.
understand. Yes. And now that I understand that on such a deeper level now, I'm like, wow, the shifts this year alone have been insane.
So much more rapid when you put all those things
All
together.
of it together. Absolutely. So for anyone who's kind of starting out or they're
What did you just say?
their minds are being blown. I really like the example actually. You posted an Instagram reel only a few weeks ago about when you had your anaphylactic attack. And I feel like that's actually a really beautiful example of like now how you can honor all of those, the spiritual, the emotional, the experience working in harmony.
Yeah, that's actually a wild story. Should I tell that story?
Yeah, totally. I feel like that's a really good example.
It is a good example. Yeah, it is a good example. Because people say like, oh, the universe showed me this and the universe showed me that. But it's like you decided that you wanted more. And so you actually showed yourself or created an opportunity where you could step into that to experience whatever was holding you back, because you are the universe. But anyway, so I had a sinus infection. A woman said to me, you should try naprogesic. She's like, it's a period, I've never had period pain, so I didn't know what it was. And she was like, it's a period pain medication, but it actually does something and it like helps the sinuses to be less inflamed and it's really good for sinus pain. And I was like, cool. So I went and bought it and it's just like a normal blue box, like it's an over-the-counter medication. But when I picked it up, I looked at it and I was like, I don't think I should take this. And then I was like, nah, it's fine. It'll be fine. I went home and then I looked at it again and it said take 2 tablets. And they just, again, this thought of like, maybe don't take it. And then I thought, why would I not take it? This is weird. It was clearly my intuition. But
I was going to say that's also your intuition and then your like logical brain stepping in being like, oh no, I've been told to take it. Like they sell it over a counter versus your intuition saying, hey, no, that's probably not safe for you to do.
Yeah, but it felt like it also needed to happen, which is interesting. But so I was like, all right, I won't take 2. I'll just take 1 to see, like, because I could be sensitive to it. Who knows? Took it and literally walked from the kitchen into the lounge room and was like, I feel really weird. And my partner Gav was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know, something's wrong with me. What is happening? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I'm allergic to that tablet I just took. And it was like literally 20 seconds. And then I was like, I started slurring and I got really confused. I couldn't feel my body. And I was like, what is happening? And he's like, lay down for a second. And I laid down and just went and just stopped breathing. And I was very allergic to it. I went into anaphylactic shock. He was good. He straight away called the ambulance. They just finished a job like right around the corner from us. They were like 2 minutes. They were there. It was so good. Gave me a big shot of adrenaline and put me in the ambulance. And then it happened again, gave me another shot of adrenaline. And then, went to the hospital and obviously I was allergic to that medication. But when I went into anaphylactic shock, I had this like feeling in my throat felt familiar and I'd never had anaphylaxis before. But the feeling in my throat of not being able to breathe, it was almost like I've had this before. I felt this before. It felt really familiar. And I'd talked about and I'd processed memories of being suffocated by my dad. And I knew it wasn't that, it was something else. And within a week or 2 after this experience, once I'd come home and healed and everything, I started to uncover a repressed memory where I was being tortured and one of the forms of torture was being suffocated and I had like a face wash over my mouth and they're waterboarding me and it was this, it's very intense. But the same feeling, it brought back up this same feeling of like, I can't breathe. And the thought was, I can't breathe, I'm going to die. I can't breathe, I'm going to die. And that was what felt so familiar. And it brought back this memory. It was meant to happen because at the time, and I don't know if you've listened to this episode or seen the snippets on social media, but the month before that, I just recorded this series where I recorded episodes speaking to my dad. And one of the things that I was saying is like, I'm never going to not be afraid of him. I'm always going to think that he's going to be coming for me. I'm always going to have to live on edge. And after I processed this torture memory and really fully healed it, I'm not even slightly afraid of him anymore. And I don't had this fear of dying and like, it's just all gone. And it was so intense at the time. Like I say it now like it's nothing. It was so intense at the time. I was being shown. And I think I was being shown because I had just publicly said, this is my last thing that I need to work on. Like I'm terrified of my dad. I still live in fear of him. I remember saying to myself, there's got to be a way to crack that. There's got to be a way to move past it. And I could say that the universe gave it to me, but I asked the question.
Yes.
So I gave
And
myself that opportunity.
You spoke it out. Like sometimes that's too, that belief of our words are our spells. And I even know, like on a total flip side, but when I first started to deep dive into my spiritual journey, and I remember saying to a coach, I was on a call and I said to her, this might sound really ridiculous, but I just feel like I don't have anything to work on. I feel like I'm just at this point where I can do anything. And I'm not joking. From that next day, speaking that out loud, everything was hard. We went into COVID lockdown. My whole business was like turned upside down. I went on this huge deep dive and I was like, whoa, I was literally sitting there thinking, I don't have anything that holds me back. And I'm like at this really good stage. And the moment that I said that, everything.
It shows
And
you show
that
yourself,
has
it
been
shows you.
literally a 5-year journey now coming out of it being like, whoa, I really called that in.
I know, but like you went there for a reason.
Absolutely. And it's like you need that unlocking. And like you did, you said you in your Instagram reel, I didn't realize it at the time. I was like, why? I've already been through so much. There's been so much pain.
I was like, it's not fair.
Yeah, why is
this
this happening? But now you're realizing that that's actually happened for you so that you can actually unlock your whole next level. And since that, opportunities have landed.
Visibility.
Businesses continue to explode. Visibility is massive for Jess right now.
Yeah.
And it's like all of that has landed. But I do believe that it's that all of that working in harmony because you also have that spiritual beliefs around this is happening for me and
Absolutely.
understanding why it's happened for you.
Yeah, and I think they come in, I would almost argue that memories or issues come back to you or come up when you're ready to process them and not a second before. So it's almost like you being like, oh, I don't have problems, anything to work on is like an unconscious message of I've got space.
Yes.
I've got space. I've got capacity.
I'm ready for this.
I'm sweet. I think you do get to a point though. I mean, touch wood. You get to a point where I'm good now and I don't think anything else is coming. I think I'm just pretty good. I'm just going to coast for a while. But
yeah, you have those little periods where you can just feel like you can sit in it and bath in it for a little bit longer. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I do feel like everything happens for a reason and it's always happening for you. And even in those deepest, darkest moments where I was like, are you actually kidding me? I'm so sick of dealing with trauma and more memories and more things all the time. Out the other side, oh, that's great that came out.
I'm glad that
don't have to
happened.
carry that anymore. And always, even small memory or big memory, there's always, I think you'll relate to this too, there's always so many ways that it was affecting your life that you didn't even realize.
No,
where you're like, you
100%.
shift one belief and you're like, oh my gosh, that actually also affected my relationship. Like, you know, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Totally.
It affects every area of your life. And people come to me to work on a relationship. And then all of a sudden that block that you have in relationship is blocking you in your business. And that block that you have in your business is blocking your relationship. It's universal. It's across all categories. We think that it's like an isolated problem, but it's inside of us.
Yes.
And that's,
I remember you saying that to me, which was like semi-triggering, but how you do one thing, Maddie, you do everything. And I was like, oh, okay.
You're like, but I just want to focus on this one thing. Let's not look at that. I've had clients that come to me and they're like, I want to focus on my anxiety, but I don't want to talk about my partner. Like, I really don't want this to change my relationship with my partner. And I'm like, the fact that you have anxiety about it changing something with your partner probably tells me that something's going on in your relationship.
Totally.
We just like, oh, I don't want to look at that thing. I'm just ready to look at this thing. But they blend across and we don't realize just how much.
Absolutely. And it's like ultimately that mess, me not showing up in my full expression was also blocking me calling in super aligned clients. And then obviously my income getting to a point that I wanted to get to, all of that was actually having a flow-on effect because of the way I felt around me, people thinking I was a star, even though that was meant in such a beautiful, intentional way. And I'm like, now I can look back with compassion and think, well, 10-year-old me didn't know necessarily how to articulate I want to be a podcaster or I want to build a personal brand. She didn't have those words.
No.
She just had, I want it to be shiny and cool and fun, which is in her eyes a star. And I'm like, well, ultimately I've done what she wanted.
It's shiny and it's cool and it's fun. But I think it's what I loved about your session as well, which is something that I'd actually worked on myself and I see all the time, is you came to me with a belief, I hope I can share this, with the belief of I have big money blocks.
Yes.
And I remember I've had the same thing happen, and I've had the same thing in relationships where people are like, I've got big relationship blocks. I have relationship issues with everybody. I've got blocks in relationship. I've got blocks in sex. I've got blocks in success. I've got blocks, whatever. And I'm like, for as long as you keep saying you've got a block, there's no solution. It's just a brick wall. And so I'm like, let's first remove the subconscious belief of I have a money block. I have a block. I have a block in full stop. And now I have something that I can go deeper into and work on. That's a little bit different than I have a block, because a block is so like,
And that's what I did say to you.
You
and
did.
It's like, and now already I've stepped into that belief of like money comes in way quicker than it goes out. And it's like in such a short period, building so much evidence that that's the truth.
Yeah.
Which
And we
is
worked on lots
wild.
of little different things, but
So
I feel
many
like
different things.
just that one alone, and that's like, there's a whole industry that thrives on that. Uncover your money blocks, unlock your money blocks, unlock your relationship blocks, blocks. And it's like, stop telling people they have blocks, because they believe they have blocks. And then
and you're going into it with thinking you have a block and
blocked.
confirming you're having a block.
You can't
the
even
first thing you
uncover
said to
it,
me
yeah.
is, you don't have a block, so stop saying it.
Yeah. Hell yeah. It's so funny. When I'm like in therapist mode, I'm so brutal sometimes. I'm just like so direct.
No, but I feel like that's also why it worked too as well, because it was like
I'm not
straight away
fluffy.
and you affirmed, well, you don't have that, so you're not coming to me for that. Whether in other things I might have signed up to or done, I'm going into it with the intention, thinking that I have the block, to then wanting to remove it, and then it hasn't worked, but it's because I'm still holding on to that block.
Because you keep finding more blocks.
Yes.
Yeah. And you've done lots. You said I've done so much around money, and I still have this big money block.
That's the block. Thinking it's a
Chicken
block.
or the egg, like it's like, but that belief alone that you have a block is often what's blocking people from actually being able to uncover what's there. And it's not necessarily a block. It's just where are you not aligned?
Yes.
What you say you want and what you truly believe that you deserve or can achieve, because based off who you were told that you were and who you had to be and all the things, there's an incongruency between who I believe I am and what I want. And it's almost like that's why people talk about a version of you has to die and things like that. It's kind of true. Like you do have to actually change your identity to come up to the thing that you want.
Really? It's like that shedding, and I just did an episode all on this, but it's like getting very comfortable with being uncomfortable of the shedding process, because I've really found that when we are letting those old beliefs or even other people's limitations, which we've taken as our truth, let go of them, there is that shedding process where your actual external reality hasn't quite caught up, but your internal reality is, oh no, it's me.
It's
it was
the testing period.
Yeah, totally, exactly.
It's like, are you who you say you are now?
Yes.
Do you want what you say you want?
Yes, and it's like you've got to be able to hold all of that and show up for that. And it's like it can be really super uncomfortable. But I feel even if we can flip script on that and really look at that from an empowered point of becoming, all of that is actually just evidence that those new beliefs are being formed and are becoming your reality and your truth.
So true. The shaky feeling is the evidence that you're stepping up.
100%. So Jess, where can women find you? Because honestly, hand on my heart, well, one, I was just so pulled to you. The moment that I opened your Instagram, I was like, she's my girl. I'm going to work with her. When you have that thought with someone, if that's really true, where like magic can happen. But honestly, I cannot recommend working with Jess enough. You've already seen in this episode, she's so magnetic. She's so magic. What you've created with Aaruka, your certifications, what you do with women is just absolute pure magic. And it's shifted so much in me. So how can women work with you? Where can they find you? And men. I don't want to isolate.
No, I do work with some men. Yeah, I guess Aaruka is the certification, so you can learn how to do what I do with other people. I have a program, Triggered to Thriving, that kind of takes people through, or women through specifically that one, all those levels of moving out of survival and panic and anxiety and going through those magnetic levels as well. Who do you have to become in order to attract the things that you want? And we go all the way, not just from trauma healing, like all the way through to thriving. One-on-one work, I'm sad to say that I don't really not do much one-on-one work at the moment. Even when I saw you, I wasn't really doing much one-on-one. I've built a clinic, so I have women in the clinic that can help women with all of these things. There's some that are more spiritual, sort of high level, some that are very trauma focused, so I can always help guide you into wherever it is that you're wanting to go and like which therapist to see.
And they've all been trained under Jess as well. So they all do exactly the same kind of processes and
exactly the same. And they're like absolutely kicking goals. Like their testimonials are incredible at the moment that they're getting. And then I do open spaces every so often to my email list. So I haven't done it for a couple of months, but I'm going to soon. But yeah, just opening 1 or 2 spaces up to the email list. I've kind of been working with people that I want to, if I just met you and I'm like, you should try it. I've kind of been just working with people that way. But yeah, we'll be opening up some spots there soon. But yeah, Triggered to Thriving is my masterpiece. That was like 15 years of my whole healing journey. Oh, okay. Well, after I, was comfortable sort of in my skin, then what was my next level? What was I I wanting to manifest after that? And where did I get blocked? And it was like, oh, then I was afraid of losing my friends if I got too healed and couldn't relate to them. And it was kind of all those levels and stages that I went through to get not just from traumatized, but to actually like thriving.
Yes.
And it's that the energy of that is we don't just like stop in the middle and settle for mediocre.
Like full magnetism.
It's full all the way, full send.
Oh, I love that. Well, I'll put all the links in the show notes, but thank you so much for joining me. I could talk to you all day.
I know. I was like, we just scraped the surface. Thank you for having me.